It began like any ordinary shift. Officers Karen Miller and Brian Schultz received a dispatch just after midnight. Disturbance at 47 Holloway Lane. What seemed like another call for trespassing quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Their body cams would capture chilling footage that, to this day, even the most skeptical officers refused to watch alone. As the night unfolded, the line between reality and the paranormal blurred, forever changing how they viewed the world. Welcome to Paranormal Crime Stories, where true crime collides with the unexplainable. If you crave stories that send shivers down your spine, subscribe now and join our community of curious minds. New mysteries and dark tales await you every week. Redbrook was the kind of town where nothing ever happened. At least, nothing you'd read about in the news. The fog that night was thick as soup, muffling the distant sounds of barking dogs and the occasional car passing on the wet asphalt. Karen and Brian drove slowly through the deserted streets, headlights slicing through the mist, when the radio crackled with the Holloway address, a name that made even veteran officers uneasy. The Holloway House was infamous in Redbrook. Locals spoke in hushed tones about the tragedy of 1993, when the entire family, father, mother, and 2 children vanished without a trace. Since then, the property had decayed, windows shattered, garden overtaken by wild brambles, front porch sagging with age. Kids whispered of ghosts, of flickering lights, of faces peering from the attic windows. But no one dared to go inside until tonight. The cruiser's tires crackled on the gravel as Karen parked outside the gate. The body cams beeped on automatically, their red lights glowing in the fog. Both officers exchanged a glance of silent agreement to stay sharp. Flashlights in hand, they approached the rusted iron gate. Cold air coiled around their ankles. Somewhere nearby, an owl hooted, as if warning them away. Karen hesitated, her heart thumping, as she pushed the gate open. Brian called dispatch. Unit 14 arriving at Holloway, investigating disturbance. Static buzzed, and then a voice neither recognized whispered, almost beneath their hearing, "Go back." Karen spun around. "Did you hear that?" She asked, voice tight. Brian shook his head, frowning, and shrugged it off. They walked up the overgrown path, weeds brushing their legs, glass crunching underfoot. The wind carried a strange, acrid smell like burnt plastic. The front door hung askew, banging softly in the breeze. Karen pushed it open, the hinges groaning. "Redbrook Police, announce yourself." Her voice echoed into the darkness. The air was heavy and stale. Their flashlights swept over the ruined hallway, wallpaper peeling, dusty photographs on the floor, children's shoes abandoned by the stairs. A chill ran through Karen as she spotted small, muddy footprints leading toward the back of the house. They followed the footprints, each step echoing through the hollow rooms. Shadows danced across the walls, and every floorboard seemed to moan under their weight. A picture frame, cracked but upright, showed the Holloway family, 4 faces smiling, eyes bright. As they rounded the corner into the living room, a sudden loud crash thundered from upstairs, making both officers flinch and raise their weapons instinctively. They exchanged a look and started up the staircase. Every step creaked ominously, dust swirling in their flashlight beams. A cold breeze swept down from above, carrying a faint scent of smoke and old perfume. The hallway upstairs was lined with doors, most closed, but at the far end, one was slightly ajar, a strange blue glow leaking from within. Brian nodded, "Ready?" Karen nodded, gripping her flashlight tighter. Inside, the children's room looked frozen in time-stuffed animals arranged in a circle, toy cars on the rug, faded drawings of stick-figure families tacked to the walls. The blue light came from a battered television set in the corner, flickering, with static. Brian reached out to turn it off, but before he could touch it, the screen flashed. For a split second, the Holloway family appeared on the screen, unmoving, all four pairs of eyes staring directly at the camera. Karen gasped and stepped back, her hand trembling. "Did you see that?" she whispered. Brian nodded, his face pale. The room temperature seemed to plummet. The body cams recorded Karen's shaky breath, her flashlight flickering. Suddenly, children's laughter rang out, distant but all around them, as if bouncing off the walls. The laughter dissolved into a static hiss. The TV snapped off. In the silence, they heard what sounded like footsteps running down the hall. They chased the sound into the corridor, lights darting from side to side. A small shadow darted into another room, a flash of movement too quick for the eye. Brian called out, "Stop, police!" They entered the master bedroom to find it empty, but the window was wide open. A cold wind swept in, fluttering faded curtains. Down in the garden, something moved a shadow crossing the overgrown yard, vanishing into the mist. For a long moment, the two officers simply stood there, listening. Karen's breath fogged in the icy air as she tried to calm herself. Brian examined the windowsill. The dust was disturbed by something small, maybe a child's hand. On the floor, there was a single marble, glimmering blue in the beam of his flashlight. It spun in place for several seconds before rolling to a stop seemingly on its own. Suddenly, Karen's radio crackled again, this time a child's voice, almost singing, "Ring Around the Rosie." The melody echoed through the house. Both officers hurried downstairs, following the song to the dining room. There, the table was set for four, with plates covered in dust and cutlery perfectly arranged. The air felt thick, as if time itself was resisting their intrusion. Brian pointed his flashlight to the wall, where someone had scrawled in faded red, "Why did you leave US?" Karen snapped a photo with her phone. The flash revealed faint handprints, too small for an adult, smudged across the wallpaper, trailing into the darkness of the kitchen. They hesitated at the kitchen threshold. The room was strangely untouched by decay, almost as if someone had cleaned it recently. On the refrigerator hung drawings made in crayon, stick figures, a dog, and a house with smoke curling from the chimney. The officers exchanged a glance of unease as a cold wind slammed the back door shut, startling them both. A sudden loud bang resounded from the basement below, making Karen and Brian freeze. Neither wanted to check, but their training demanded it. They found the basement door slightly open, stairs descending into darkness. The smell of damp earth and mildew greeted them as they slowly made their way down, flashlights trembling. At the bottom, their beams caught rows of dusty jars, a broken rocking horse, and a trunk covered in cobwebs. As Karen approached the trunk, she heard a faint scratching sound from inside. Heart pounding, she knelt and slowly lifted the lid. Nothing but old toys and brittle papers until Brian gasped and pointed his flashlight behind her. There, on the far wall, was a fresh child's drawing in red crayon. Two police officers standing beside the Holloway family. Above them, a crude, smiling face floated in a blue cloud. The air turned frigid. Suddenly, all the lights flickered, then went out. The basement was plunged into darkness. In the pitch black, Karen fumbled for her radio, her voice shaking as she tried to call for backup. Static exploded in her earpiece, mingled with the giggling of children and the whisper of her own name. Brian's flashlight blinked back to life. For a moment, illuminating a pair of glowing eyes in the corner. They blinked and vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. Panicked, the officers scrambled back upstairs, stumbling into the hallway. The house now felt different, warmer, but suffocating, as if something unseen was closing in. The blue glow from the TV pulsed down the hall. Desperate, Karen and Brian headed for the front door, only to find it locked tight as though the house itself refused to let them go. Suddenly, the TV switched on again, static crackling louder than before. On screen, footage from their own body cams played back at them, but the angles were all wrong, as if filmed from above or through the walls. The faces of the Holloway family appeared once more, mouths open in silent screams. The words, "Help US," flickered across the bottom of the screen. The lights in the house surged back on, blinding for a moment. Then every door and window banged open at once, sending a gust of cold wind howling through the rooms. The blue light vanished, and the air grew cold. The officers didn't wait, they ran outside, gasping, shaken, and desperate for fresh air. Outside, the fog had lifted and the neighborhood was utterly silent. Karen and Brian hurried to their cruiser, hands trembling as they radioed dispatch for assistance. When backup arrived minutes later, they found the officers pale and visibly shaken, but the house looked unchanged, still, silent, windows boarded, nothing out of place. Back at the station, the officers reviewed the footage, hoping to make sense of what they'd experienced. The video revealed chilling details. In the children's room, as Karen stepped back, a translucent figure barely visible stood in the corner, watching silently. When the laughter erupted, the figure seemed to turn its head and smile, lips stretching impossibly wide. In the garden scene, a pale hand could be seen pressed against the glass, then slowly withdrawing into darkness. The department's tech team pored over the files. Frame by frame, they found more anomalous faces in the static, a whisper of movement in the background, lights flickering in patterns that resembled Morse code. Some officers laughed it off as digital glitches. Others refused to be in the station alone at night. Karen, deeply shaken, began dreaming of the blue-lit room, sometimes waking to the sound of static crackling from her television at home. A week after the incident, Brian got a call on his personal cell phone at 2:13 a.m. Static hissed for several seconds. Then a child's voice spoke. "Why did you leave us?" The voice was clear, pleading. Brian's hands shook as he dropped the phone. That same night, Karen was driving home when she saw a blue light flickering in her rearview mirror, following her car for several blocks before vanishing without a trace. Both officers, once known for their skepticism, became withdrawn and haunted, refusing to discuss Holloway Lane, even among themselves. As rumors spread, other Redbrook officers quietly admitted to experiencing strange events during their own patrols near Holloway Lane. Radios picking up children's voices, flashes of blue light in the distance, the sensation of being watched. Old case files resurfaced reports from years prior of trespassers who'd fled in terror, describing ghostly faces and the same chilling melody. Ring around the rosy. The Holloway House now stands as a forbidden place in Redbrook, its gate chained shut, windows permanently boarded. Teenagers sometimes gather outside, daring each other to knock or peer through the cracks. Local legends have multiplied, ghostly. Faces at the windows, voices on the wind, blue lights moving from room to room. The footage from the officers' body cams remains locked in evidence, never released to the public. Some believe it should be destroyed. Others insist it's proof of what truly happened that night. What's your theory? Were Karen and Brian witnesses to a haunting or victims of an elaborate trick? Could the Holloway family's spirits still be searching for answers? Or was it all a case of nerves and suggestion? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where true crime meets the unknown.